Hi, I'm Brittany Rizzo, and you're watching Disney Channel. Oh man, that was really good. I will forever be jealous that my guest today got to do that. Welcome back to My Only Friends. Today I had the pleasure of sitting down with my friend Jennifer Stone. Jennifer Stone is an actress best known for her role as Harper Finkel on Wizards of Waverly Place. Her and co-star David DeLuise also have a rewatch podcast of the show, going in detail of their experiences behind the scenes. Jen is now an ER nurse, and we talk a lot about how she maintains her mental health in two very challenging industries. This episode reminds me of the Friends episode, the one after Ross says Rachel. Rachel comes back from a trip to Greece alone after Ross ditches her for Emily at the airport. Jen loves to solo travel, which is what Rachel played off in front of Ross. However, when he leaves, she tells the friends how miserable it was and spent most of her time crying, which is more relatable to my experience on a solo travel. Jen and I got super vulnerable and real in this conversation, and we probably could have talked for 3 more hours. So get cozy or buckle up for your long drive ahead and enjoy my conversation with Jennifer Stone. Of course, I had my computer plugged in, but it was just slightly not plugged in all the way. So it was dead. And I was like, oh my God. And then I get onto Zoom and it's must install update. And I was like, I swear to God.
Mine said the same thing, and I was like, fuck it, I'll just do the browser. It's fine.
Yeah.
I want the app anyway.
Oh my God. Can we talk about your wall? Your wallpaper is incredible. That is amazing.
Thank you. So this was like a junk room. And I just recently, my friend Gary actually just helped me. God bless him, as such a godsend, because I was so overwhelmed by it. Because during the pandemic, it just became the catch-all where everything goes. And so he helped me clean it up. And so I put this up recently, and it's not. If you look closely, it's not exactly lined up, but I like the pattern.
So I went through a phase during the pandemic.
Out of here. You went during a phase. I'm listening.
During the pandemic where I was really into contact paper. It was but literally I can't cut a straight line to save my life and have not a creative, crafty bone in my body. So it was just the most random things with a strip of contact paper.
Yeah, but if you're drawn to contact paper, that's not true that you don't have a crafty or creative bone in your body, because it's that creative bone and that craftiness that's drawing to the contact.
True. Your hair looks amazing also. Looks great.
Thank you.
How was your trip?
Oh, it was so good. God, it feels like a million years ago already. It was good. So I did an old 10-day cruise with some of my friends, to Spain and France. And we'd never traveled together, and we'd always wanted to. But by the end of the 10 days, I was so exhausted. But I was like, holy shit, I got 20 more days to go, which is a very first world, champagne problem. Go fuck yourself. Can we curse on this?
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, so I literally remember getting off the boat being like, oh my God, I haven't even started yet. I have to, but I really lucked out. It didn't rain, or I think I had maybe 2 days of rain in Scotland, but Ireland had this unusually great week or 2 weeks where it was super sunny and beautiful, and nothing, I had so many buses and hotels and connections and stuff because I was traveling all around Ireland and Scotland, and everything went fine. I didn't miss a bus. I didn't miss a flight. I was shocked because I fully went into it with solo travel. I always go, okay, something's going to go wrong. That's part of it, is you learn about yourself, traveling by yourself, and having to troubleshoot on the way when you don't know anybody and you don't know anything going on. But that's part of what it makes you better, I think, because you have to kind of get through that. But I was just shocked because nothing went wrong, and that just doesn't happen. So I just felt really lucky.
Yeah. Can I tell you, I'm paralyzed in fear just thinking about getting on a boat for 10 days.
Well, and normally I'm not.
I went on.
Makes you scared about it.
Well, I went on my own first solo test the waters trip to Santa Barbara, Jennifer.
Okay.
And I had a meltdown. I was also going through a really hard time. I went through this period where my dog got sick and she passed away, and then I was also going through a situationship breakup, and I was
the worst.
Truly. And I was I'm so far away from my apartment. I was an hour and a half away. And I was I don't know anybody here. I'm all alone. Freaking out. And it was forgetting Sarah Marshall when the room service guests are coming up and they're are you okay?
Oh no. Are those happy? They're sad tissues. Have you done any solo travel since? Because you gotta write that of it. Okay.
No. I mean,
So also,
go ahead.
sorry. No, please, please, please.
I think there's a lag in our internet maybe, so it's like you're hearing me maybe like a second past. So we keep talking at the same time, which is fine. No, I mean, look, I had some moments where I was like, okay, I really have to learn how to stick this out and like learn that I'm okay alone and just go with it and not be so hard on myself because I was so ill prepared, like to the point where like I forgot a phone charger, like which was like, the whole first night I spent trying to find a phone charger because the hotel didn't have a single one, like, it was just, like
Yeah.
and I was like, "Why didn't I just bring a phone charger? What's wrong with me?" Like, and
So you did?
I know, and so it was just like, "Oh, well, okay, this is how it is," but I definitely learned, like, okay, when I do leave the house for travel, I have to be so prepared, and I have to think of every not worst case scenario, but every scenario that could happen so that I'm not having a meltdown in a hotel room.
But it's also, I think it's also, and this is what, and I honestly, I don't know if I would have ever fallen in love with like traveling solo if I wasn't kind of forced into it.
Mhm.
But I think too, like, yes, you try to be as prepared as possible, but you also just accept that something will go wrong. You will forget something, and it's okay. Like,
Mhm.
and that's the thing too, is like, to me, it teaches you so many things about yourself, and it teaches you how to like move through the discomfort and move through the like loneliness and the fear and the like so you can't, because you don't have distractions, you don't have ways to get away from it like we do when we have our creature comforts. And so what I love about it is like it's like, okay, I'm just here. I am 1,000 whatever miles away from anything that I know. So I have to just stick through this, move through it. And I'm by myself. So I have to check in with myself. There's no distractions of, this person or this situationship or that situation. And it teaches you of like moving through the discomfort and also that no problem is unsolvable and that nothing's really that bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, shit will happen. Like, that's life. I've really been focusing a lot this year on the concept of detachment. And I have not mastered it by any means, but just detaching. Yeah, yeah. But it's so helpful because you think about anxiety and depression and like all these things that we suffer with. And it's stuff that 9 times out of 10 has either hasn't happened or it has happened and you can't do anything about undoing it. You know what I mean? You just have to move past it. And so to me, detachment's such a beautiful thing because it frees you from all of the anxiety and stress that of stuff that never even occurs. And so like that's something that I've really been, and to me, solo travel is something that helps with teaching you detachment in the moments in the day to day of like, okay, that happened. That's okay. Like if it's, I'll be fine.
When you were traveling, what would you say was, like, one thing you learned about yourself that you were impressed by, and one thing you learned about yourself where you're like, "Oh, I don't love that."
I don't love, and I think this is a very common thing that I don't love the need to distract myself when I'm uncomfortable. So, like, if I feel lonely or if I feel stressed, my like go to will be like go to TikTok or like
Right.
try to like go somewhere else. You know what I mean? It's so instead of sitting in it with that discomfort, but running from distraction, I don't love. And one of the things I like is that I am more interested in doing something because I want to do it, not because I'm afraid of doing it. Because like I love my mom to death and like I come from a generation of really strong women, but they also there's a lot of fear. Like my grandmother never learned how to swim because she was terrified of the ocean. And my mom, I wonder how much she doesn't do because she's afraid of what might happen. And she always like every time before I take a trip, she's okay, you gotta look out because this is going on and this is going on and this is going on. And like it's so dangerous here and pickpocketers and this and your whatever. And I'm like, Mom, first of all, I live in Los Angeles, where it's incredibly dangerous city. So it's, a lot of these places are just cities, right? And but that's something that I really like about myself is I will move through fear because I know it's something I've always wanted to do.
Mm.
So whether that's like rock climbing or like riding motorcycles or something, like, yeah, it still scares me. Like, I'm not immune to that, but I'll move through that fear because I'm more interested in the experience or the getting to do something I'm passionate about or excited about, than afraid of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you do have that kind of you're moving through the fear, so but that is so it's not fearless, but I don't know what the word I mean, it's bravery, I guess, because you do I see you, like, rock climbing and on your motorcycle and, like, your line of work too, like, all of that is a lot of fear that you have to move through.
And sometimes I wonder if I'm just in a constant state of fight or flight.
Right.
There was something I saw the other day, of course, on TikTok, which I hate starting any kind of statement like that, where they were talking about different, like, sleeping patterns.
Mm,
So, like, different, like, that you sleep. And I usually sleep on my side like this. For some reason, I'll do this, like, mummy thing with my
I'm
hands
like
where I
this.
kiss them.
I have the T-Rex arms.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they were saying T-Rex arms or the X arms are, like, trauma response. I was like, because you're trying to protect yourself, and, like, so you're trying to, like, protect your vital organs, and I'm like, "That tracks. Okay, I'm
Yep.
sure." Yeah.
I know. I literally tell my
Yeah.
friends that I sleep like a vampire because I sleep like that,
Yeah.
upside down in my cave.
I know, and I wish I slept on my back, like Megan Fox style, or, like, I wouldn't get any, like, stuff on, like, acne or whatever, but no, I can't. I'm a side sleeper for sure.
So talking about, like, bravery and where, the women in your life, when you started acting so young, and how was that? I mean, you're from Texas. How do you end up in LA?
I still ask myself that question. I'll try to give the spark notes on this because there was a lot of steps. My mom always talks about it being like Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat because there's all these like steps that are just happen that you're just like that's insane. So my brother loves video games, still does, less so than he used to, but he like would spend all his time doing that. So one summer my mom said you have to find something else to do. So he found this like theater camp, and I was the kid that got dragged to all the rehearsals. And there was something that just sparked in my head, and I'm sure some of it had to do with the fact that my older brother was doing it and everything my older sibling does is so cool. It just sparked something, and I was a really shy kid, and it was something that I remember it so distinctly. It was something where it, like, gave me permission to not be reserved. Acting was something that gave me permission to explore myself and other people and to I didn't have to apologize for existing because it was pretend. And so I did a lot of theater in Texas, and I was never really a big commercial or print person, but I did some some stuff in Texas. And then I went really far for the daughter on Everwood, and that got some attention of, like,
Yeah.
agents.
Yeah.
And so out in California, and so my mom was like, "Okay, we'll go out for 2 months. It'll be a fun, like, summer vacation, and then she'll get it out of her system, and I won't have to hear it anymore," because I begged, I begged. I was like, "Please let me go to California. Please let me audition," and all this kind of stuff. And I went out for 2 months to the legendary Oakwood, and then nothing happened. I didn't book anything. I got close to stuff. I got a lot of second place trophies. And then I went home and I booked this movie called Secondhand Mayans, which it's still probably the biggest thing I've ever done, but when I was 9, which is a fun time to peak. Um, it had it had like Michael Caine, Robert Duvall, and Haley Joel Osment in it.
Wow.
And it's just like crazy cast, and there were like zoo animals, and I mean, it was crazy. Like, it was still such like a fever dream of a project to get to do. And my agent in LA was like, "Okay, so when are you guys coming out again?" My mom's like, "What are you talking about? Like, she went out and she didn't book anything." And he's like, "But she just booked this huge movie, and like, you know, this is part of it. You just keep coming back out." And so we did. Like, I 3 months during back when these existed, but 3 months during the pilot season, so like February, March ish, and then September, October, for episodic season, I would come out, twice a year with my mom. And it was all because I just wanted to. And I loved it so much. And my mom saw that I loved it so much. To this day, she could give two shits. Like, she just wants me happy. And it's why I've lucked out and escaped a lot of the like child star stuff, is because my parents didn't care. They just wanted me happy, and they just wanted me to do what I love. Yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy journey. But yeah, that's the easiest spark notes I can give you of how I ended.
No, that's amazing. Well, because I think there's especially for me, like, I was so obsessed with Disney Channel growing up, like, it was my religion, and, like, Zoog, Disney, all of it, like, I would get home and it's so weird because kids nowadays, like, they're not allowed to go home and just watch TV, which I think is so strange, like, I was raised by a
Well, they watch
television.
TikTok.
I know, it's so
Maybe
weird.
this instead.
They'll watch full clips of TV shows on TikTok, but won't watch TV. I'm like, "What is happening?"
Yeah. No, that's something it's something I've seen with, like, the Wizards pod where, there'll be a clip of something, which when you play it in its entirety, there's context and, like, you know what I mean? But people will freak out over some little, like, 1-minute clip of something. I'm like, "Well, of course that sounds weird because you're not seeing the whole thing of, like, why we started talking about that, like,
Mhm.
completion and where we get to, and you just get this little sound bite. And I hate it. I hate this, like, I think it has made our attention span so much less. I think it's made us not quite as nuanced and, like, understanding and empathetic of other people, of how there's a lot of gray area. It's made us very black and white, which I don't think intellectually is a very good thing. But yeah, because we live in a soundbite, quick clip, title card, like, people don't even read news articles. They'll just be like, "Oh, did you see this?" Because that's what the headline is. And I ha it's the clickbait thing, and I hate it because, like,
Mhm.
I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day, he was also a child actor, and he said he's like he did, something with a friend of his and said something that they pulled, again, out of context something and blew it up and made it sound way worse than what he actually said. But nobody gets to what you actually said. They just see the soundbite or they see the clip and then they think that's, you know. So yeah, I sidebar, but yeah, it drives
Yeah.
me crazy.
Trust me, I couldn't agree more, and I find myself doing it too, like, I'm like, I'll start watching a video and I scroll in, like, 20 seconds. I don't even watch the whole thing because 'cause I'm like, over it," and I'm like, "This
I think
is
the world does it.
bad." So going back to Disney Channel days, I was always convinced that, like, it was this magical world when I was little. Like, I was like, How does this place exist, and who are these people, and how did they even get on this TV show?" Like, it was all so mythical, magical to me, and when you're younger and you see kids who are your age on here, you're like, "Wait, I can do this too, like, how do I get on it?" And, like, it's just really, for me, it was complete luck and, like, weird pick of the draw.
But it all is. It all is, because the thing is, like, every single person I always thought, like, last callbacks or network or whatever you wanna call it are always interesting because everybody in that room can do a job.
Mhm.
It's not about that. It has nothing to do with ability at a certain point. It is just damn luck. It is you
Mhm.
look like somebody's cousin that they like, or you look like someone's cousin they don't like, you know what I mean? Or,
Right.
like, you fit the family, or, like, somebody knows you from this other thing. It's so many, like, arbitrary things at that point. So, yeah, it's all luck for everybody. There's no the best actors or best performers are not working. Yeah, because they haven't had those, like, things line up.
Right, right. And how old were you when you got Wizards?
I was 13 because I started my journey with Disney when I was 12. Because I did a pilot that didn't get picked up 'cause, Vanessa Hudgens was in it, and it was right before, High School Musical, so there was no way they were gonna lock her into a TV show,
Mm.
and plus it was not a great TV show either. It took place on a bus and, like, went around in circles, and, like, it was weird. It was a weird concept, and, like, everything was either at the bus stop or in the bus. It was cool, but, like, it just wouldn't have worked, like, for the Disney format at the time, and, like, it didn't fit their formula.
Yeah.
So, so that didn't, get picked up, and then they brought me in for Wizards, and then I got that when I was about 13. So it was my high school years, right? So we did the pilot when I was 13, I think we started the show when I was 14, and then we wrapped when I was 18, so Disney High, baby.
That is so wild to me. I mean, I was 19 when I was on that show with you guys, and it's funny because I was watching it this morning because we only did 1 episode together, and it is so I can imagine too with the podcast, it was so weird for me to watch. Like, I have seen clips, but
Yeah.
it can make me emotional because was I haven't watched an episode from start to finish of Wizards in I don't even know how long.
Why would you? That would be so weird to go
Right.
and, like, watch something you did, like, that's believe me, it's weird because, like you said, I have to do it for the podcast for the Wizards pod, and And so basically, like, I write like little mini book reports for every single rewatch. So like I have to watch them and I pause it and I make like detailed notes because the audience or the listeners of the podcast have said they really like it when we go into detail.
Yeah.
And for licensing reasons, we can't like play the episode. So so I have to really like rewatch in detail, and it's a weird out of body experience where you feel like you know that it's you, but you're like watching somebody else. It's strange. It's not natural to watch yourself that much. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, and it was such, like, a prominent growing period in your life, like, I would imagine, like, the Friends cast can have a little more, like because it was, like, their 20s, like, they had already done the, high school experience and all of that, but
This
you're
robe is developed.
yeah, like, you literally don't have this, like I mean, you have a sense of self, but you're not in complete ownership of it because you're still a kid, and, like, even me being 19, like, I remember feeling and I was happy that you talked about this on your podcast, like, about the body image and, like, what you know, because I remember feeling the same way, being like, "Oh my god, is that what I look like?" And then I didn't know anybody, I was so scared, this was the first job I had ever worked on, ever, and then Roxy does my hair in, like, a big bouffant, and I'm like, "Great, now I look really" Yeah, I was like, "Now I look really fucking crazy, and this is my first time on" but it was this big lesson of, like, own it, and also, like, acting is not about what you look like at all.
Commit to the bit. Commit to the bit,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to comedy, you know?
Yeah.
And that was also such a terrible time for like women in body image. I remember
Mhm.
that like God, that like awful like Us Weekly cover. Where it was like Nicole Richie, Lindsay Lohan, and they were all like rail thin. And I remember because I've struggled with eating disorders and things like that in the past, and
Mhm.
spoken about this before. And I I had done the like anorexia thing where like I overworked out and I underate and did all that, and that was for me like 11 to probably 13.
Mm.
11 to 12 was probably when that was like really prominent. And then I did I had like kind of adjusted it where I was like, but it was a lot of like all or nothing, like binge eating, overworking out, like eating
Yeah.
perfectly and working out, or throwing it all out the window and binge eating. And I did all that all through Wizards. You know what I mean? And then on top of it, I didn't know I had diabetes at the time, which I look back at the show and I can totally see like the inflammation and like all that kind of stuff. So my body must have just been a mess.
Mhm.
But like the internet was mean at that time. Mean. Like I just remember I had so much, and I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of people that had this where, it was "You're fat, go kill yourself" on Twitter and stuff like that, and people just being awful. Like if you didn't fit in this perfect thing. Um and now it's interesting again, it's like looking at somebody else looking back at that, because now I'm just like, my body's my body. Like to be
Yep.
honest, like getting diagnosed with type 1 diabetes was incredibly challenging, but I'm so thankful for it because it forced me to take good care of my body and to view it in a totally different way.
Really.
Like it's about function and it's about health and it's, all these things, which I don't know if I would have been forced into that healthy relationship with my body. And I'm healthier, and I feel like I look better than I ever have when I'm just doing things I enjoy, like rock climbing or Pilates, and
Mhm.
versus beating myself into submission of doing all this like hardcore strength training and all this stuff that I did all throughout Wizards. I just happiness always I think is going to correlate with health and this obsession over having to look a certain way. And yeah, like it breaks my heart looking back at photos of me then and just thinking how much energy I wasted not feeling enough because some societal bullshit it, you know what I mean? And I just wasted so much energy and time, and I hope you feel this way too. Like you look back at your younger self and just like, oh,
Mm.
she's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like she's great. And like she didn't believe it or didn't feel that way and didn't own her own power and presence. And it just breaks my heart because I see the girls now, these little girls on TikTok. And I know I'm rambling. I'll wrap it up, I promise.
I know, that's fine.
These little girls on TikTok that are just with like the skincare things and wanting to look like the influencers deals. And it
Mhm.
just like these little like 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds using retinol. And I'm like, no, like, what are you doing? Like, be a kid. And that's what really breaks my heart is it's just all of it just gets in the way of you just enjoying your skin and being a kid and not thinking about these kind of things. There's plenty of decades to think about these things.
Yeah.
Don't waste it now.
Right.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's like the teenage girl rite of passage.
I know. And it's so sad. Like, I wish I could go back and just tell little Brittany, like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. Because it was like, it's interesting because I was watching this episode with when Max turns into Bailey Madison. And I remember they brought in like another girl delinquent and she had like speaking parts and everything. And I remember being like, "Oh, it's cuz I'm not tall and blonde that they didn't give me that part. It's cuz I'm not thin, tall and blonde." And I just remember feeling so
Maybe that's true.
sad.
Maybe it's not.
Right.
That's the thing is like we start to we start to create this shit in our head. I remember, oh God, it was so I don't know why I remember this so clearly. And it was a weird of me to even do, but I remember, like, growing up because of all, like, the weird eating disorder stuff that I had, I remember, feeling really less than next to Selena a lot of times. So, like, especially that, like, it was on that s it's weird the moments you remember, but it was on that superhero episode in first season where we're at the convention and she like Harper, I think it's just Harper knows or something, where she tells Harper that she's a wizard. And I remember us both being in that outfit and thinking about like I had acne on my face and I had back knee and I just felt so fat in that outfit. And I remember like kind of like playing with her collarbones and being like, oh my gosh, like you like, look at these or whatever. Like, just like I said, totally weird. And I didn't know at the time that she had a lot of insecurity about being so skinny and being like kind of like boyish figure. And so we both were dealing with these things. And she like touched mine. She goes, "You have them too." And I'm like, but to me in my head, I was thinking all the like the Tumblr, you know,
Right.
skinny,
Like they're not sticking out.
whatever.
Yeah.
Totally, like, sticking out, and I was like, "Mine don't do that," and she, like, had me, like, feel like I said, it was a weird interaction, but she, like, had me feel them too, and she was like, "Yours do the same thing," and I'm like and it came from I guess, I don't know, I can't speak for her, but, like, I guess it came from a place of insecurity for her too, because she didn't like that they were more prominent, and I was insecure that mine weren't more prominent. Like, it's just this game you don't win. You know what I mean? Because it's always what you don't have because you spend all the time with yourself versus someone else, you get to see them at their best or like
Right.
it's just like I said, it's a game you don't win. And that's why like I'm a much more proponent now of just comparing myself to where I was versus anyone else because the comparison thing is killer. And I understand, like I said, why you felt that way because there were many times where like I said, Selena and I were all dressed up next to each other and I felt like the ugly fat friend, you know, and it felt like shit. And
I totally
like I
relate to
said,
that.
yeah,
And I think because we're both short, so it's like being the short and like if I gain 10 pounds, it looks like 20, and then my boobs are big.
yeah,
And like having big boobs on Disney Channel, I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Like it we do feel so, but now I'm like, look, this is my body and it's fought really hard. And I've been overweight, I've been normal, I've been underweight, or quote unquote normal, like, and at the end of the day, like, I just go like, even now, I've lost a bunch of weight because I had so many hormonal issues and I've lost a ton of weight, and now people will be like, "You're just wasting away to nothing, and are you getting more" and I'm like, "This isn't a compliment." Like, the first thing people will say to me, like, "Oh, you're so tiny," and I'm like, "I that's not a compliment," because in my head, now I'm like, "Okay, well, now this is the only thing that they notice about me, so I have to maintain this or else
yeah,
there goes my worth." And it's such a fucked up mind game.
dude. I after Wizards, I uh lost a bunch of weight. And I was working really hard at it. And it was ironically right before my diabetes diagnosis. But so I don't know. I can't even remember what I was doing or how I did it or whatever. But I lost a bunch of weight. And I remember I went to this event, and I saw a bunch of people I hadn't seen in a while. And I didn't mentally prepare myself for exactly what you're talking about, of everyone being like, "You're so tiny." And the interesting thing too is like, there's two things that happen, and they both make me crazy. One is guys will give you attention who never.
Yep.
And then also women will get to a point where they're like, "You look too skinny. You can't get any more weight." And it almost is like competitive thing. And it's the worst. And you're just like, both of them are bad. Like both of them are not good. They don't show good sides of human nature. And I went to this event and there was this one guy who I had such a crush on forever. And I was very much the friend, very much, "Can you give my number to your friend?" Like I was very much that for him. And he like wouldn't shut up about it. Like he wouldn't shut the fuck up. He's like, "You just look so," because I think I was wearing like leather pants or something, whatever. But like he's like, "You just look so good. Oh my God, you just look so good. You look like this. Oh my God." And like he wouldn't shut up about it. And I very soon after that, I subconsciously like hated that and rejected it and put all of the weight back on because at that point, I wanted that protective layer to weed out those people. And I didn't realize that until like therapy and unpacking that years later, that on a subconscious level, this was like, well, fuck you. If you're going to respond to this, I don't want to be this, which is also not healthy either. But like, it's just crazy. It's just crazy how the world responds to female bodies. And like you mentioned with hormones too. And like my endocrine system with diabetes is a mess. I try to keep it together. But it's a day-to-day thing. Like hormones are such a fluctuating thing, and there's so much we don't understand about it in healthcare. And so yeah, just the weird thing about I don't know, the worth that gets equated to women's bodies is
Yeah.
to me.
And also like learning that like commenting on people's bodies, like I had somebody say at the salon, like there are all these cookies out there and they were like, well, Brittany's obviously not eating them. And it was like, what if I had said, well, you obviously are? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I won't ever say that.
No, it's
So,
crazy. It's something that's weird that happens. Yeah, one it's like touching pregnant women's bellies. Go away. Like, it's not okay. Like, it's nothing should be said about someone else's body because you just don't know what someone else is going through. Like, I was talking about Selena, like, being insecure about feeling like she was boy-shaped and skinny, and, like, I had no idea about that because it's something that, like, I think we're better about it now, but then we didn't talk about that kind of stuff, right? And so it's just wild to me that in this day and age where we are so cognizant about mental health and about sensitivities to other people, sometimes I think even too much so. I think it's an overcorrection, but I'm glad we're making the correction, and I hope we find like a happy medium in time. But it just, yeah, it's wild to me. It's wild to me. I mean, even at the hospital, like there's a lot of like people bring like food and stuff like that or like donuts, and people say to me same thing. They're like, "Well, Jen's diabetic. She can't have it." And I'm like, "That's not true." You don't even like, what? Like, yeah, it's just, that's why you just have to draw that circle around yourself. And I'm not immune to it all the time. Like, I have my moments of weakness of letting it get to me, but
mhm.
of just drawing that circle around yourself. And again, being in competition with yourself or being in comparison with yourself and everybody else. Again, the detachment too. Of just being like, okay, okay. And that's why, like, taking the good with the bad and not believing any of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm a big believer, you can't believe the good stuff because then you have to believe the bad stuff too.
Mhm.
Because for years, I believed the bad stuff. So, with people's comments like that, when I'm succeeding at detachment, which
Right.
that is not all the time, it's not even most of the time, but when I am, it's like, "Okay,"
Right.
you know?
Right.
And most comments have way more to say about that other person than they do about you.
Yeah. It's it's hard. It's hard because I am somebody who lives in my brain so much and I try to get out of it. And I'm like, God, like you said, the years that I wasted being so self-conscious about my body. And now my friends are always like, you're so good at getting pictures of like when we're all out. And I'm like, that's because for 5 years I didn't want any evidence that I was even alive because I hated what I looked like so much. So now I'm like,
Uh-huh.
no, I want to remember what I was like at this time in my life because it's the first time in my life where I feel comfortable in my skin.
Yeah. Well, and I think that kind of is a through line of everything we're talking about, is it's recognizing, okay, I may have wasted time. I may have not done this thing, but it's either I do it now or never. You know what I mean? Whether it's traveling or whether it's celebrating your body or whether it's, you know, drawing that circle around yourself and not letting people get to you. And it's, yeah. Like, because I go back and forth sometimes of feeling like my 20s were wasted
Me too.
because I, I don't think it's uncommon, especially with our generation either. But because for me specifically, like I was diagnosed with type 1 at 20. I was in and out of hospitals from 20 to like 24. And then I was doing my prereqs and I was in nursing school from 25 to 27. And the pandemic happened. And so yeah, I woke up at 30 I'm trying to think what year I turned 30, 2 years ago, I think. Yeah, almost 2 years ago. So 2022. And I just remember being like, where I haven't traveled like I want to. I always wanted to get my motorcycle license and I hadn't done that. And all these things that I hadn't done that I'd always wanted to do because I was doing what I felt like I was supposed to do or the things I had to do. The thing is like every time I find myself spiraling in that, like I lost my 20s or like I wasted my 20s, I just have to go, well, but I have now. Like I'm still
Right.
like I can either wallow in the fact that like, oh, I didn't do what I wanted to do, or I can fix it and do
Yes.
something about it.
Yes.
You know, and just in Edinburgh, my last night there, all my friends, of course, were like, "You're gonna find a Scottish man or an Irish man or whatever." And of course, like I didn't. Like I don't know what it is about me, but like men just don't really approach me. I don't know if I scare them or I don't know if I give off like fuck off vibes. I don't know. It's fine.
I mean, I'm in the same boat, sister.
Well, but most of the time they just disturb your peace anyway.
Yes, stay away from me. Here's the memo now. Stay away from me, please.
And we're like, I don't know why I never get approached. Don't fucking approach.
Exactly. I don't know when I'm single. All of you can fuck on.
Yeah. But I went to this bar. I was walking on this like very like vintagey, vintage shop, like alt area because, that's me, whatever. But then I saw this like bar where it was like all old records and it was like this little hole in the wall bar. And I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, I haven't really gone out at night, except for like a ghost tour. So I'm gonna go to this bar on my last night. I'm gonna meet people, whatever. So I went and it was one of those things where I was like, and perfect. I got there and it was like communal tables. So like everybody had to sit with people they didn't know. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I sit at one. And of course, I ended up with two 60-year-old women from the States. And we just ended up talking. But the reason I bring them up is the fact that like they were a group of friends that they had kids, they had families and stuff, and they just wanted to travel together. And so and one of their friends had like gotten cancer and like couldn't go and was very like, you guys need to go. I want you to go. And they all just kind of went on their own little side quests and intermingled when it made sense. And then like I was talking to one of them and she's like climbed like the Pacific Crest Trail, that whole thing that like from Wilds that the
Oh, yes.
for the screen did the movie about backpacking. She's done that whole thing. She's climbed like Mount Rainier.
Oh, no. It froze.
And she was like talking about doing another one in her 60s. And I was like, this is just so cool. I was like, there isn't this imaginary clock that exists.
Mm-hmm.
Is bullshit. It's another one of those like societal or self-imposed limitations that just doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. I literally just had this conversation with my therapist 2 days ago of I am like, if only I had done this in my 20s, I would have set myself up for success better now, and I wouldn't have all this regret. And I should have done, like, I'm in a constant loop of beating myself up about my past or
Yeah.
like, what if this could happen? And
Mhm.
in like an anxious type of way. And it really is this back to detachment and like learning acceptance and just recognizing that, like, you have to trust the timing of your life and, like, the lessons that you had to learn, and, like, had I learned all those things then, I probably wouldn't appreciate half the things I do now.
Oh, 1000%. And
Yeah.
I don't know if this is helpful, but it helps me for what it's worth. when I start to find myself spiraling down that like, oh man, I wish this had happened and that happened. And I wish I could go back. And if I can only tell myself whatever, I stop myself and I go, but you didn't. But it wasn't. But that didn't happen. So now what?
Right.
That's the thing that pops me out of it, at least, is going, oh man, if I had just gotten that part, or like if this had just happened.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't. So now what? What do we do with what we have? And I absolutely agree that like I do think each of us is given what we need.
Yeah.
And nothing more and nothing less. And if it doesn't happen, it is not for you. I'm a big believer that like you cannot stop what's for you and you cannot cause what isn't. You know what I mean? Whether that's jobs or relationships, like no matter what you do, like the situationship thing, right? Like there's nothing you can do to convince that guy or that girl to want to be with you.
Right.
Right? They're not meant for you. And then on the flip side, for the person that's right for you, there's nothing you can do to convince them otherwise.
Yeah.
And it's the same with jobs.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like it's the same. Like it's hard to accept when like, especially when we project an idea of somebody or an idea of a job or an idea of a lifestyle, whatever. It's hard to separate yourself from that projection. But that's where like I have to remind myself that it's not real. Like that's not actually what it would be like. Like
Right.
the relationship with that person probably won't be what you've created in your head. Of that job is going to have problems. Is going to have people that have egos, or is going to have people, there was a medical show that I really wanted that I didn't get. And they film at my hospital.
Oh my
Just the extra like, like checking in for work and being like, okay, cool. And it was like my dream job. It's like what I've been saying for years that I want. But it was a really good lesson of being like, but it's not yours.
Yeah.
It's not for you. Otherwise you would have gotten it. And also too, like I've reminded myself, like, you don't know what that set dynamic is like.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know if there's egos. You don't know if it's an uncomfortable set. You don't know if it's a friendly set, because I've lucked out. Like Wizards was such a fucking dream. Those cast and crew, like my favorite thing about Wizards was the people.
That's literally what I wrote. Yeah. That's what I wrote down. Like I hear stories, and anybody who's worked on Wizards that's come into this podcast, I say this, like, I feel like it was a blessing and a curse that being the first thing I worked on, because when I hear that all sets are not like that, I'm like, "Oh, what? Like that's so strange." And there was no ego. Like I was sitting eating lunch with the main cast. It wasn't like othered. And, I have friends who work on these big shows, and like they're these BC listers that are like assholes to them. And it's like,
It's always the BC listers assholes. And I don't know if they're trying to prove something, but like the ones that have really like a long career, like I'll never forget that about like working with not to be the name droppy bullshit, but like working with Michael Caine and Robert Duvall. I just remember like I didn't know who they were. I went up to Michael Caine and I was like, I loved you in Miss Congeniality, because that's what I knew him from. You know what I mean? But they were so like, I sat and had lunch with Michael Caine. Like he didn't care. Like it was just people.
right.
People with people. And it wasn't this whole like, oh, I'm above you. And I've noticed that like that really is like the reality stars, the social media people act like that. Like it's the people who really do have a ticking clock. Like their career is not going to last. And I don't know if it's a desperation to hold on to something vaporous, or like, I don't know. But yeah, I've always noticed it's the
There
minute
was
here.
there was this quote that I saw, and I'm gonna butcher it, but it was like, you have to think of the universe like when you have a dog that's sitting there begging and it's watching you boil a pot of water, and it's like, I just want that. What is that? Or like if you have a piece of chocolate in your hand, the dog's begging for it, but you're like, I can't give this to you. It's not because I don't love you and I don't think you deserve it. It's because it's not good for you. And you have to think of the universe doing that for you. And that really helped me, because I'm like, yeah, like I may think I want this thing so bad and this is the answer to everything, but like to me, the universe, they know better, and they always like, it has my back, and I just have to have faith in that.
Yeah. No, I'm a big believer in that too. And I know that we all have to like come to terms with like whatever we think, whether it's God or the universe or whatever makes sense for you. And for me, like I have these moments of perspective where I go, thank God, I was not given what I thought I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
How different my life would look if I was given all of the things that I thought I wanted. I'd be a mess. I'd be a
Right.
total mess. And then I also love, on the flip side, I love when the universe reminds you that, like, hey, I got you. In those moments, right? There was something I had recently where, like, which I mean, in the business is rough out there right now. I know you know that, but like it is rough. Like writer 2008 writers strike times 10. Like it's
Yeah.
rough out there. Like the auditions don't really exist. Like
Yeah.
yeah. So it's hadn't had an audition in a minute, and I just got this call randomly of like, hey, what's your avail to come play so and so's daughter on this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, where did my name even come up? Like, I mean, I've been in this business forever, but like, you know, and then I didn't end up getting it, but I was thankful for even just that thing of God, for me, God being like, hey, I could turn this all when the timing is right and when the project is right,
Mm-hmm.
it can come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It can come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like I have the ability as a higher power, and like I said, for me, it's God, to change somebody's mind, to bring you into somebody's head, to give that to you when it's right. This is not it. This is my little reminder that, like, I haven't forgotten you. You know, you're still on your path. You might not see it right now, but that path still exists and we're still stepping forward. You know what I mean? And when it's supposed to change, when that phone call is supposed to happen or this is supposed to happen, it will.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's hard because there's moments where you're just like, what the fuck is happening? But
1000%. I mean, the past few years for me, I literally have had endless conversations with my mom. And at this point, I'm just like, we're going back down the rabbit hole. Like, there's no point in continuing the conversation because it's the same, where it's like, I'm just struggling with the fact that I don't feel like I have forward momentum. I feel like I'm in this kind of limbo, you know? And I think a lot of people feel like that because we're in post pandemic, we're in a strange time. The world's totally different. And I think, and our generation was not, a lot of us did what we were supposed to do to get the house, to have the family, to have the kids. And that didn't happen.
right,
So I think
right. We followed the formula that didn't work. So now we're like, what
yeah,
the fuck?
you're like, what do you mean everything I worked for? I'm not.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, you promised that this was gonna happen. Yeah, I only followed these steps and then it didn't. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. And so it, I think a lot of us feel that limbo feeling of like that just being in the middle and not really going backwards and not really going forwards and just kind of existing. And I'm being forced to, and this is I think the lesson of why I'm in this place right now, is I'm being forced to find the joy in the day to day and to find the things that bring me happiness, even in the little things. And then to just know that it's gonna, like, to be happy in any circumstance.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us are very swayed by circumstance, and we hang our hat of happiness on those things. And it's terrible. It's terrible because circumstances will always change.
Yeah.
Even if you meet the person of your dreams, get the job of your dreams, the job will end. That person could die, or that person could, or the rose-colored glasses could wear off. Like, life will always ebb and flow. That is the guarantee. Death, taxes, and the fact that it will never consistently be like this. And thank God, because if it was, we wouldn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know?
So true.
So so that's the thing, is it's like learning to be happy. And that's my challenge right now in this weird time that we're in.
I think that's everyone's challenge is like being in the present moment is so hard. And like it's interesting because for me, like when I am acting or auditioning, that's when I feel the most connected to myself and the most present. So I'm like, well, can I just do this all the time? Like, but which leads me to the question. I love asking people like, what character from TV or film do you channel in your hard times? Because sometimes for me,
What do you mean by channel?
so like sometimes for me, like when I'm at work and I really don't want to be there, I'm like, I'm just gonna pretend to be Rachel Green today. Like that's the only way it's gonna become fun.
Friends fanatic, I love it.
I know.
Or like, My cosplay stuff that I've seen you in is so cute.
It's so funny.
But
Or, like, when I'm having, like, a day where I'm like, I have a lot of shit on my plate, and I'm in a pissy mood, but, like, what would Lorelai Gilmore do with this day? Like, I always have to pretend, like, because 'cause I'm like, "Brittany Rizzo, she can't cut it today. Like, it's not gonna happen, so he can, like, be."
this might be such a, like, go fuck yourself answer, but I 2 things. One, I have a really hard time not being myself,
Mhm.
like, to a fault. Like, there's times where, like, I should turn it off, and I just really struggle with it. I don't know how to do it. Like, something got tapped in me when I was that little shy kid that used to hide myself, that the moment I started acting, all of a sudden I was, like, applied my personality like a paste. So, I don't know how to turn it off. So, a lot of times I just don't. I probably should. But I also fuck that. Like, no, I shouldn't. Like,
No, you
and
shouldn't.
people that are for me will like it, and the people that don't aren't for me. So, whatever. But, like, at the hospital, at first I don't do this so much anymore because I don't have the bandwidth for it anymore, but, like, when I first started, I when I started with Disney, we all like, we I didn't go through media training, but I felt like my personality did not fit, like, the Disney type because 'cause I'm not super bubbly, I'm not super high energy, like, I'm very sarcastic, very, like, people like, kind of Alex-ish, Alex
Yeah.
adjacent, whatever. So that's my personality, and, like, and I make sarcastic comments, and I, curse like a sailor, and, like, I'm just not I'm a little bit rough around the edges, and as I've grown older, I like that about myself, but as a kid, it was so I see interviews, and I'm like, "Who the fuck is that?" But it's literally like this, like, high pitch I'm basically, like, doing, like, a less quirky Harper, actually, in, like, interviews when I'm, like, 13, 14. And I'm like, "Yeah, so and we're doing this, and everything's great, and da, da, da." It's like this high-pitched, energetic thing, and when I first started at the hospital, I hadn't I had put that away for a very long time, this, like, presentational, bubbly, what I felt like I was supposed to be thing. And then when I first started at the hospital, I found that coming back out, and I was like, "Oh, I hate that. I
Mm.
don't want that." Like, that's so, like I killed her. Like, she's not supposed to be here anymore, you know what I mean? Because that came from a place of feeling like the real me wasn't right or wasn't what people wanted. And so to be on so like I said, in those moments where like I have to put somebody on, that's what gets put on is that like early Disney Channel days
Mhm.
press junket me,
Yeah.
which is like some weird like cheerleading Harper in a suit. I don't know. And then but that it just doesn't even in interview like, I mean, you and I know each other, but even in interviews, I just wanna have a conversation with people.
Right.
I wanna meet people where they're at, and I have a hard time popping into somebody else. So, yeah, it might be like I said, that might be a go fuck yourself answer, but
No, I mean, I think it's
there's not really one character.
like, for me, it's like I'm still being myself, but I see so much of myself in those characters. Like, and so I guess, like, that's also, like, a follow-up question of, like, was there a character on television that you've watched where you're like, "I relate to this person so much, like, they are a part of me?"
I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer for that. I'll be honest, Brittany, I'm sorry.
No, it's
Like,
totally fine.
no, I think and I think it's because I've acted since I was 6 that I just always so I didn't feel that same connection. Like, I love a movie for its merits, and I love a movie for, like but I always see the actor playing a character. So I don't know if I've had characters that I love, you know what I mean? Like Janine Garofalo in Reality Bites, I love. Like, uh, Winona Ryder in a lot of things, yeah, so there's actors I love, and I love, like, that character and that performance. Recently it was have you seen Dinner in America? Have you seen that movie?
No.
Oh my god, you would love it. It's, like, such, like, an alt girl, like yeah, it's what I love about it is it's not the manic pixie dream girl. The lead girl is just weird in the best way. In the best way. It's like they call it, I think, a punk rock love story, and it's one of my favorite movies that I've seen in a minute.
Love it after.
When everything is feeling really shallow and, like, formulaic, it's something that has a lot of heart, and the character in that I love, right? Because it's all the times where I relate to it in the sense that I'm like, all the times I feel weird or I feel like nobody wants to hear this or this is unattractive or whatever. Again, it's that like the guy that's right for her, which I know it's a movie, but like he loves it,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so for me, like that, I think there's a disconnect with like movies and television that prevent me from, I can like the idea of the character, but I start to break it down. Like my brain immediately starts to go, oh, I love the writing that they did, and or like the performance that that person gave, or the school. Like so, my brain just immediately starts to break down stuff. So I think it creates a barrier of me relating to characters as much.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
It's a boring answer, but
Yeah.
yes, go watch Dinner in America. It's really good.
Yeah, I am in a WandaVision phase right now. I can't stop watching it. I mean, I watched it when it first came out, but I watched it all over again because it was like she's grieving and like I'm in a very intense grief period. And it was like Agatha has this line. She was like, "You're a baby witch obsessed with sitcoms with years of therapy ahead of her." And I was like, she just wrote my memoir. Like,
Yeah.
and so it's like, oh, like I just, when I use TV so much to escape reality all the time. And like, I, it's funny because I started EMDR therapy and she has me create like all these figures where it's kind of like, have you seen Inside Out?
Yeah.
So it's like basically I'm creating my emotion console. And I have different figures that come in and help me with when those emotions come up. And for my nurturing figure, I picked Jennifer Aniston, of course,
Yes, of course, of course.
because I'm like, I just feel so nurtured when she's around, and like nothing bad can happen if Jennifer Aniston is on TV. And like, I also admire her, like her entire career and how graceful she is when the media just constantly is picking her apart, and like how
Yes.
she handled a global like divorce and breakup that was traumatizing. Like I look up to her in so many ways. So I have to call in my nurturing figure in certain situations. So this is just so funny because I was telling Roxy, she's like, "You are insane." But I'm sitting there and I'm
In
like,
this day and age, whatever works. I don't, you know what I mean?
but what's so funny is I'm sitting there and I have like the things in my hand for EMDR. I'm crying my eyes out and then I just hear my therapist go, "Okay, let's call in Jennifer Aniston." And I like literally,
That's
so funny. I open my eyes and I look at her and she's got like this like kind of like smile on her face because I'm like, how fucking cool would that be if she just came walking in here right now?
and she's like, Brittany, hey, I see you.
It's gonna be okay.
Um, no, but to me, like that's, and it's something that, like I said, I don't really have, and I have mixed feelings about it. I don't really have it with celebrity culture because, like I said, I grew up in business, and so I have a disconnect with that. But and because I know that they're not all they're built up to be, and so I don't like to meet people. I don't like to meet people. I don't want it to ruin their body at work. I don't. I want to see them and see what they look like in person. That's cool, whatever. But I don't like to approach people because I don't want to know. But it's but that's to me what you're talking about though is the thing I love, and I feel like the love of celebrity is an extension of that. But what I love about movies and television is
Yeah.
because you see yourself in it. And it's done it with me too. Like I know, like when I started watching The Bear, like I almost wrote the guy that created The Bear like a letter because I
Mhm.
just was like, I so appreciated getting to see what I was feeling and feeling really isolated
Yeah.
with like PTSD and like depression and things like that of how you work through that. And sometimes unhealthfully work through that grief and work through that process.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, like it's something that like it I truly do believe, and we're not curing cancer, but I do believe that it like in storytelling, it allows people to feel seen and it
Yeah.
allows people to feel understood and it allows you to process, and it is a comforting thing to be understood by storytelling. That's, and like I said, and I think celebrity culture truly is an extension of that because you're equating those roles with that person, which is not always necessarily the case. But if it brings you comfort, it brings you comfort. You know what I mean? Like I said, in this day and age, whatever works. You know what I mean? It's you want to believe. the stars and astrology and all that kind of stuff, and or you want to believe in whatever, like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I'm on my path, and whatever, I try to leave the world better than I found it, and I try to make sense of things the way they make sense to me, but I never understood why people cut down or judge other people's way of getting by or getting
Right.
there.
Right. If you're not hurting anybody else and this is what you have to do, then like it's what you have to
Who gives
do.
a shit?
Yeah.
If Jennifer
Rant.
needs to come into your therapy session, who gives a shit? That's comfort fantastic.
Well,
Fantastic. And you
it's
can laugh at the absurdity.
yeah. It's also interesting though, because it's like, it's really just those deep subconscious parts of me telling me what I need to hear, but I'm listening to it and giving it more value because it's coming from Jennifer Aniston. Because
Well, but and also too, it's probably you're gonna listen to it more because it doesn't comfort.
exactly.
Because like the advice that we give other people is great, but do we take it? Listen to ourselves? Fuck no.
Right.
So sometimes you do have to just make it outward.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we've been we could probably talk for like 3 hours, which brings me to like we just really need to like
We could do a Joe Rogan length.
oh my but like we really need to go with like mocktails because I don't drink, but I'm happy to sit with you. And I mean, we literally just need to get together and go do something because we can talk for hours and I feel like we have so much in common. And I literally, I'm like, we're all in this together. I mean, it truly, but
Yeah.
you work in two very intense industries where it's acting and you're an ER nurse, correct? It's ER.
Yes.
How on earth do you maintain your mental health? Like, what keeps you grounded in like extreme situations? Because both are very uncertain. You're seeing things that, you know, stick with you, I'm sure. And they're intense jobs. So there's got to be a way that
Yeah.
you like care for yourself in all of this.
No, my friends joke that I'm a glutton for punishment because I picked two of the most like I mean, and granted, like I said, acting is not curing cancer, but it's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
Yes.
And I'd be lying if I said I had it all figured out because it's something that like I'm coming up on my 5th year as being a nurse, and acting is my outlet, and I haven't been allowed to do it as often as would as of an outlet as I need. So I've had to find other outlets. And it's something that I do struggle with disassociation a lot. A lot. There are times where like I will completely disconnect and it's hard for me to turn off. And so that's something that's like my latest self project is learning how to protect myself in those really low moments, but not disassociate from important moments in my life when those low moments are over. And I am struggling with that. So that's something that I'm learning how to get better with. Having said that, I have made a lot of progress in because I'll be brutally honest because again, I think even if it just helps one person that it resonates with, it's worth it. But after so 2020, I was too just overwhelmed and in the pandemic and a brand new nurse and just trying to keep my head above water. And something happened once the world started opening up in like 2021, 2022, where I was in a freeze mode. I was in freeze mode. I think all of 2021 for the most part, for about a year in that 2021, 2022 span, maybe like half and half, I didn't leave my house. I went to work, I watched TV, went to sleep, went back to work. And I only worked 3 days a week. Like I just didn't, I was in freeze. I was in a functional freeze state. And I'm proud of myself because I got myself out of that.
Yeah.
And it's things going, it's recognizing, it's like what we're talking about at the beginning. We're going to bring it all full circle. I'm like moving through feelings, right? Because feelings are not facts. You acknowledge them and you move through them. So, and I don't always succeed at this. I give myself one rot day a week where I can not have to be anywhere. I don't have to do anything. I can do that, what I did for a year, basically, one day. Otherwise, I'm worried that it will become more.
Yeah.
But what I do is I go, okay, you have to do something physical. You have to get outside. You have to see a friend. There are certain like milestones that I have for myself that are non-negotiables every single week because I know how easy it is for 1 week to turn into 2 weeks and then a month and then 6 months. You know what I mean? So I have these like non-negotiables with myself, and like I'm gonna go do some of them when I get off with you. Where I'm like, okay, I have to go do something physical.
Yeah.
Right. So that really helps because I'm very prone to depression. That really helps me. So like I'm gonna rock climb once we get off of here. I'm going to do something that I'm just interested in. Right. So like I'm gonna work on my motorcycle. And then I have to do stuff like go to the grocery store and stuff like that. But I'm sprinkling things into my day that make connect me to me.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So like those are the things that have really helped me connect with myself and reconnect with myself. And I have to I say non-negotiables because I know it's one of those things that there are days where I get up and I had a really rough shift at the hospital and people died and or things weren't right or it just was really fucking uncomfortable and really fucking hard and I don't want to get out of bed. But I know that if I don't, I'm gonna fit shitty and I'm gonna like stew in that. So I have to move through that feeling. I have to do the things that I know in the long term will make me feel better, but right now are the last things I want to do.
Right.
You know? Like all the time, Brittany, all the time. I'm like, the last thing I want to do in the world is go to Pilates or go rock climbing or go see this friend. And I have been flakier than I have been in a long time. But I'm getting better at going, I've made a commitment to myself to do these things, or I've made a commitment to see this person, and I know I will be glad I did, or just there.
Yeah.
And so that's, like I said, that's how I move through right now. I'd be lying if I said I had it all figured out. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't disassociate like crazy, or like if I didn't have days where I fail. But it's the fact that I've made progress from where I came from, getting myself out of that functional fight or flight free state, and that I'm doing more. And I think, sorry, this is a very long-winded answer. As you can see, I'm very incapable of.
No, I love it.
But like I have these flashes sometimes of because I always go home to Texas for Christmas, and I always have this, and I think it's pretty natural for people to have this reflective thing at the end of the year. And I always sit on the couch on my parents' farm in Texas, and I think about what did I do this year? Where did this year go? What did I do? What did I accomplish? And like this is the first year in a minute where I'm really proud of getting myself out of my comfort zone and things that I wanted to do. And I did do everything I wanted to this year the first time. But I set goals, I hit those goals, and that I can keep my eye on.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, no matter if you didn't do this massive thing this year, you fought for yourself every day, which is the biggest accomplishment anyone can do because it's so hard to do that for yourself. Like at the end of the day, like we're learning how to parent ourselves and take care of ourselves and be compassionate towards ourselves. And sometimes like just going to Pilates or going to the grocery store, if that's the best you can do, if that's your best, then that's the best, literally the best. So like be proud of that, like celebrating those small wins because I mean, I totally understand. I mean, the past couple months, like sometimes it's like, if all I can do is shower today, then good for me. Like, good for me. Because sometimes it gets to the point where I'm like, you're not getting me. You can peel me off this couch. Like,
Yeah. Well, and I think often back to because and that's why like I was talking about before about comparison and competition with yourself. And that's it. Because that's the only person you have a relationship with your whole life is you. Right?
yeah.
People come and go, circumstances come and go, jobs come and go, whatever. The only person that is your constant is you. Your
Right.
relationship with you is the most important. And so the competition and the comparison with your previous self is the only thing that matters. And I think a lot about that year because I think about time a lot. And it's something that I, I wasted a whole year.
Yeah.
And it's something and I needed it. So I had overtime with it because I it wasn't wasted because I know I needed it, but I also hate that a year of my life was spent rotting and like going and do and you know what I mean? Like I just so I whenever I get onto myself about like, oh, I didn't do enough or like I wish I did more, I think back of like, but you're not rotting on my couch.
Right. Right.
You're not incapable of going, you're not like mentally incapable of going to see people. You're not in this freeze state.
Right. But also, like, you had to go through that. So now,
Is what I
yeah.
think about this.
But you went through that so that now you know, like, what steps you have to take to not get to that place. Because God forbid that that did happen when your career was like, you know, taking off and you're doing all these things. And then you're like, nope, I can't leave my house. And then, there's more at stake. It all works out the way it's supposed to, even though I
Yeah,
hate and I hate when people say that, but somehow it does.
I and like
No.
I said, I think that we're always given what we need. I and I also have to have, like you mentioned earlier about being more understanding with yourself. I have to be a little bit more understanding because that was my way of processing something that was really fucking heavy. And it's still like a fever dream of just working in the pandemic with no coping skills, right? Like I was a new nurse. Did not have a thick skin. My world was acting. And so you come with that with an open heart and you come with that ready to have your emotions on your sleeve and being vulnerable. And that is the opposite of what you can do
Right.
as a nurse, right? So I was an open wound in a time that you did not want to be an open wound. And so I took a lot of that shit on. And it was a lot, Brittany. It's a lot. And so I have to be a little bit more forgiving with myself of like, and the thing is when it ended, we just, we never stopped.
Right.
Right. So it's like all of a sudden everyone's like, it's over. And you're like, what do you mean? And we were given no time to, I mean, me and my coworkers talk about this sometimes of like how we never talk about it. We talk about how hard it was, but we don't talk about the specifics. Because for a lot of us, like it's kind of a lot of it's like white community where it's like I have these like images, these really like distinct memories of it, but like it's like a story somebody told me. It's like watching.
Yeah.
It's a terrible equation, but like it's like watching episodes of Wizards. I'm like, I know I did that. I know that happened to me, but it doesn't feel like me. It feels like it happened to somebody else. And so I have to be, long story short, because I could go on and on and on about just the mental health and how it's not considered with healthcare providers and how that whole thing, like we all just got steamrolled and then nobody really gave a shit, where it's supposed to continue and like pretend like everything's back to normal again and go back to, my tummy hurts after like fridges full of bodies, like, like, so I could go on and on about that, and I won't. But I have to be more understanding of myself that year was a result of that. It was my brain and my body doing the best it could after being through something really traumatic.
Yeah, and you needed the rest and you needed to take care of yourself, and I think it's hard. Then we think, you know, especially with grief, and there's a lot of grief I'm sure that you dealt with. The world keeps moving and you feel like, why does nobody else, like, nobody knows how I feel right now, and how does the world keep moving when I'm like the most heartbroken and fucked up in the head that I've ever been, and like I just have to be like, would you like some coffee? Like, what?
Yes,
It's
1000%.
and it does, it makes you tired. I mean, and then you spend all day like, nope, can't think about that, shoving it down, shoving it down, shoving it down, and then
I'm an Olympic disassociative right now.
it'll be 10:30 at night.
Disassociating into
Yeah. And then out of nowhere, it creeps up on you and it shuts down your whole body, or you can't stop crying, or you're so angry that you won't just like want to punch a hole in the wall. And you're like, why am I feeling like this? Like nothing even just happened. But it's because you've been ignoring it and pushing it aside all day long. So of course it's going to come out somewhere. So definitely, like, I think more people than not are feeling like this, no matter what they're going through in their life. So it is definitely being compassionate towards yourself and not judging yourself for feeling this way, because you would be crazy not to feel that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we all just hold ourselves to, or at least I know I can only speak from my experience, but like I hold myself to a very high standard and I have a lot of expectations for myself. And so I think that's where the judgment comes in, is I think we all have this idea of our like higher self, and the reality falls somewhere less than. And it's not that it's less than, it's just a reality versus an ideal. You know, nobody is the ideal. And but yeah, but it's also too why I love things like this. And I know like everybody's got a podcast and like it's this very saturated market, but I like it for the conversations like this that happen that I feel like we don't have otherwise. And because I do agree with you that I think these are pretty universal things for people in general, but our generation and Gen Z, and where we're all just trying to figure it out. And it doesn't help when we all present the like Instagram version of things. And I'm guilty of it, of course. Like I post on Instagram when it's good shit. I don't, I don't post enough the real shit. There's also too, there's times when I'm like, I don't think people really care. And so it's like, so a lot of times people don't, and it's true. I've seen the reaction. People don't they want the distraction, right? And that's fine. I'm fine to offer that with social media sometimes. Do need to have a place where like we have honest conversations and we don't just disassociate and we don't just run away from discomfort. Because that's something that I think with where we are now is I find that people are incapable of being uncomfortable. Don't grow like that. You have to, and I see it with the ER all the time. It'll be like I threw up one time, so I came to the ER, and I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, or I passed out, so I came to the ER. And I'm like, the amount of times I've passed out and been like, oh, that's weird. Let me see if it happens again. You know what I mean? Like, because our bodies just sometimes need to hit the reset button or need to eat something, throw it up, like whatever. Like and then wanting like medications to immediately fix it. And you're like, we can't just make it go away. And it's something that is just so fascinating to me and also just so scary is, like I said, people these days seem to be really incapable of being uncomfortable for a moment.
Yeah.
And like I said, you do not grow when you can't live with discomfort.
Yeah.
You don't. Like you stay the same, and everything is about feeling good in this moment. And and then we're just a bunch of hedonists who never progress. And it's just, it doesn't.
Which is just so uninteresting. And like, I don't want that for myself. Like, I have dedicated years and hundreds of dollars to therapy because I want to grow. I want to be held accountable. I want to enjoy my life that I have here. I want to experience my life. I don't want to just go through the motions. And it's so uninteresting to be friends with people who do not want to grow, who don't want to be held accountable, or to date somebody who isn't interested in being held accountable or dating. Like, life is that's what we're meant to do with people. And I do think the world of social media, like, because we think we're connected through social media, we don't try as hard to have in-person relationships because we're like, oh, I know what they're doing. I know what their life is. I know what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's so strange and it's this very weird time. And I think every single person is kind of wanting this connection, but also too afraid of it because it feels so uncomfortable. But like, that's life.
Yeah, that's life. And that's, I find it to be, and like I said, and I'm not immune to it. I have my notes for sure that I just want to be comfortable. And I'm fine with, again, it's balance in all things, right? So it's like you have to make time to be comfortable and to relax and to wind down and all those kind of things and to recover. And those are the times to be comfortable, but you can't live there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that can't be all the time. Because then your threshold for just life, which will inevitably happen, you will get sick. You will get hurt. You will be uncomfortable, physically and emotionally. And it's mentally and it's like you just I think of it as like interval training, right? It's like if you're never uncomfortable, like you're never going to be able to withstand what will inevitably come, and it's like I just don't. To me, comfort is complacency.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a time and a place to be comfortable, and like I said, in a recovery period, but to be comfortable all the time is complacency, and to me, like complacency can be death.
Yeah.
In the sense that it's like you can exist and go through life and go through the motions, but you're not really living.
Yeah.
You're not really experiencing all that this beautiful and tragic and painful and wonderful life has to offer, if you don't experience.
Yeah. Now, when you are having one of those days and you go home and you're like, I just want to rot, what are you watching?
Every time someone asks me this question, I forget I've ever seen anything. I What am I watching? Like I said, a lot of times it's just doom scrolling on TikTok, which is something I'm about to like. I'm not going to delete it because it's like there's work that I do through like that I get through that, um, but I have to put a kibosh on the doom scrolling. It's so bad. Like I hate that like weekly reminder of like this is how many hours you're on your phone. I was like I'm that bums me out so hard because I'm like oh my god.
I don't even look. I'm like, that's none of my business.
Yeah. Like I like the reminder because it's the eye opening of like this is how much time you
Yeah.
spend on this thing. I'm like this close to getting a razor, but I know that you can't because nobody has like flip phones anymore, and like nobody like it's just the
Oh
world.
my God. I was like, Jen, a razor.
No, no, oh my god, the phone.
The I was like, wait, what?
That was like the cool phone when I was
Well, just me. I'm older than you. I remember the razor very much. That
no, the razor was super cool, but yeah, out of context, it's not.
like I'm about to get a razor. I'm like, don't.
I didn't even think about that. Oh my god,
Now you see how dark my brain is.
oh no, mine is too. Mine's two things. It's either really bleak and like macabre or it's aloof. I literally was telling someone at work, I was like, sometimes you, and she goes, well, I shouldn't have to ask you to do something. And I was like, no, 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 you shouldn't. I agree. But sometimes I can just be really in my head and really
Yeah.
aloof that sometimes I just need someone to go, hey,
Yeah.
I need to do this thing. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm down to do it. It's not bad. It's just sometimes I'm too entwined. But what am I watching right now? I've been on this thing. So I just recently got introduced to Letterboxd and I'm obsessed with it. Probably like I was waxing poetic about it with this girl that I didn't really know very well. And she was like, okay, like very much like relax. But I love the concept of it because I love movies so much. It's gotten me to watch versus like rewatching a show that I've seen 1,000 times, which is totally fine. But I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna spend time watching something. I want to watch something that is going to strengthen my catalog of creativity and like give me more resources to pull from that influences other things that I really love so I can see it and connect all the pieces because that's really fun for me. Creatively is to connect those dots and to expand sort of that like creative arsenal of like, hey, well, this is the visual I like and this is where that comes from. How do I interpret it my own way? So yeah, it hasn't been series right now. It's been like my letterbox list.
Oh.
And I kicked some pretty good ass in October. Like I had a spooky horror movie list on my letterbox that I was like really rolling through. So
Yeah.
I just recently watched. What did I watch? It's Peter Jackson, one of his like B horror movies that he did before Lord of the Rings, called Brain Dead. It's also called like Dead Alive as well. It's weirdly got like two titles. It's on YouTube for like because you can't find it on streaming anywhere. It's on YouTube. It was said to be the goriest movie ever before the Evil Dead remake. And but it's like camp gore. I don't know how to describe it to people because it is so like out of this world, like crazy, over the top, like mixing real life with like stop motion. Like the prosthetics are just insane. It's like a zombie mommy dearest. Like it's insane. It's insane. It's really crazy. And I've been on like a Cronenberg kick too. And I recently watched and which is he's very similar a lot of times with like The Fly or with of course my brain's gonna go blank, which I hate when this happens. The one with Debbie Harry and James Woods. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm.
I mean, if you're thinking of anything scary, there's no way I can help you out.
Oh really? Oh well, come on. I thought I was talking to one dark soul to another.
It's a dark soul, but it's a scared soul.
Scared and dark. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Anyway, my point with that is like I love horror because it reflects on humanity. I think it's a very easy, accessible way to tell a story because you can also oftentimes make them for cheap and studios know they sell. But it's also a way of like like the zombie genre, for example. I just watched Train to Busan the same night that I watched Brain Dead because they're both zombie movies. So that was how I like made it.
Yeah.
But what I love about like the zombie genre, and I know this is so far off of the question that you asked, but this like
No, I love it.
how much I love movies and things. But what I love about like the zombie genre is it shines a light. It's not really about the zombies, right? And it's like why Walking Dead I think was so successful, and so I enjoyed it up to a point that is because it's a great way to look at what humans will do in times of desperation and panic. So it looks at human nature, and horror movies often do that. They will have this like veil of, oh, the blood, the guts, the gore, the horror, whatever. But underneath it is, I find the really good ones are always a look at society or human nature, or, it's always a deeper look into what we're capable of. That I find really interesting is to take something that is very surface level and to give it depth.
Yeah.
I find very interesting. And plus like the blood, guts, and gore and prosthetics are they're very, I know it's not for you. I know it's not so scary, so fun. Like I love making a horror movie. Like
It's so funny. Like
ridiculous.
I think because my brain is so dark and I'm like a sponge to everything that I watch, like it affects me so deeply. Like then I'm like, okay, then this is real. This could actually happen. And it terrifies me. So that's why I watch the cheesiest shows.
No, I get that. I get that. Like I said, for me, I think what saved me is the fact that there is always a disconnect. Thinking of how they did that. So that helps me. Like I just went to horror nights a few weeks ago, and I just remember thinking of like these are all just goth theater kids. And like so I wasn't afraid of it because I was like, there's nothing less scary than a goth theater kid. Like, you know what I mean? So and like I literally was just like I would get startled because that's just like a human response, but and I would think about it. I'm like, okay, like but I understand what you're saying. I had a movie like that recently. I watched I think it's a Dutch movie, the original, again, I'm so bad with names, so bad. Like I could see the poster in my head. It was the one James McAvoy just did where it's like they go to see, hold on, I'm gonna look this up because this is gonna drive me nuts.
Why do I need to look who James McAvoy is. It's like I can't
Are you sure James? Oh my God.
Girl, I do. I know who it is, but I need to see his face.
No. You know who he is. It's Thomas. And then so many more things. But Speak No Evil. Okay, that's what it was called. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I know who he is.
It was like I said, I think it was a Dutch film. I'm not sure. But I watched that recently, and there's the scene. The ending is different. I haven't seen the American version.
Okay.
Apparently, the endings are different. But the ending of the foreign version was so upsetting to me. It just because I had never seen that particular type of death in a movie or depicted on screen, and it was so realistic and visceral that it just like I went to bed that night and I couldn't get it out of my head in the worst way. So I don't have that moment often because, like I said, I do watch a lot of horror movies and I can disconnect and think about how it was done. But like sequences like that remind me of like what you're talking about. Of like I don't watch them because it's too visceral.
Yeah.
And like I said, I do occasionally have movies like that. So the foreign version of the Speak No Evil did that to me, where I was just like I respect it because of the intense reaction that it gave, because I always think it's better to have someone hate or love something than about it.
Right.
But I really hate it. And it's the same way I feel about like Midsommar and like Hereditary. I hated those movies. Hated.
Because of what it made you feel.
Yeah, well, to me, I'm like, and I'm fine with feeling shitty if there's a reason for it. I hate horror movies that make me feel shitty just because everything's shitty and life is shitty and people are horrible. It's just like, I don't need that. Like,
Right.
I live with that. I don't need to watch.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, yeah, I respect like Hereditary and like Midsommar for like what they are. But like, to me, there's no moral, there's no lesson, there's no understanding of humanity. That's the aspect of horror that I love. That was the longest aside of all time about what you watch. But again, like you said, you get me on movies or television, and it's like getting my brother on World War II. Like
That's so funny. I mean, I'm the same exact way. It's like when people, that's all I talk to with clients. Like I'm always wanting to know what they're watching, wanting to know what they're thinking, because art really is like all of it brings us together in a way, and it helps us all in different ways. And like it truly is like on my worst days, there are things that I've watched where I'm like, okay, I feel better now. Like, and it's just,
Yeah.
yeah. And we have talked for an hour and a half, and I know you have. I'm like, I don't want to take up your whole day, but we need to go out and do
We'll
something.
wrap it up. I do have to ask you though, and then we'll jog because I want to go to coffee. I completely agree, but I want to drive Roxy too because I think she'd be like FOMO if we didn't.
Okay.
And I would have FOMO of her not being there too. But what was I gonna say? I feel like you would really like it. Glow. Have you seen the show Glow? It's on Netflix.
With Mark Maron, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple episodes. I do need to
Okay.
get into it.
I feel like you might like that one. That was a favorite of mine a few years ago. There's like one particular episode where and she's actually on House of the Dragon now. She's a really talented actress, which of course I don't remember her name because I'm horrible with names. But yeah, it's I would get back into that one.
Yeah.
And you might really like that one. It's a weird, quirky show, but it was one of my favorites of recent years that I just hearing you talk, I feel like you might enjoy.
Interesting.
Yeah. On that note, we'll wrap it up because
I know. We can't not wrap it up without talking about David DeLuise because he was on this show. He was like one of my first guests ever, and he was like so kind, and he's always been so kind to me and been so amazing. And the second we got off of our interview, he was like, "You have to have Jen Stone on." That was one of the first things he said to me, and he truly was like, "You guys have so much to talk about. Like, you guys need to get her on." And he was a big help in helping me snag you on here. And it has been a long time coming. Like it has been
a long time coming.
I know, but I'm so glad that we finally did it. And like, I just adore you. And I'm so grateful for your time and everything you had to say. And for always, like, since the day I met you when I was 19 years old, like, you were always so kind, and that it sticks with people. So
Great.
Thank you.
No, and that I think we all know what that feels like to have somebody, because you do remember the times when people are kind, and you do remember the times when they're not. And so that means a lot to me to hear that I fall into the kind category. Because like I said, my biggest thing in life is just to leave it better than I found it.
Mm-hmm.
So that means a lot to me. And I am glad we finally did this.
I know, me too.
So
Well, enjoy your rock climbing, enjoy your motorcycle,
thank you. What do you
enjoy your cats. I have physical therapy because the one time I tried to do something adventurous, I busted my knee. So I watched all of it. I watched all of Alias in like 2 months, and I was like, I want to be Jennifer Garner. I want to learn how to fight. I want to learn how to swing swords around. And I lasted 2 classes and ended up in urgent care.
Was it? What was it? What kind of fighting was that? Was it?
It was at Sword Play LA or Sword Fight LA.
Yeah.
Twisted my knee, patella tendonitis. So I have physical therapy today, and that's super fun.
We're getting old, Brittany.
I know. I'm like, is this what it is? Like, I want to start a new hobby at 33, and my body's like, the fuck you are.
I know. I tried snowboarding for the first time this year, and I remember I fell one time because I mean, like I said, snowboarding, you're gonna fall, whatever. And my knee twisted, like not enough to be like a lasting thing, but enough to be like, oh shit, like that could have been really bad. And I just remember thinking like, okay, I'm not as pliable as I used to. Sir, things don't just do this and come back, like they're breaking now, and like we're hurting things and whatever. So yeah, I understand completely. So I hope you have good PT. And I hope it doesn't deter you from doing other new hobbies and things like that, but maybe less.
Maybe like knitting, crochet. I gotta stick to things that I could sit down and watch TV. That's just who I am.
Maybe like pottery. Because at least that gets you like out, right? When you're doing things about the ball, your knees are at station, right? Right? Okay. Well, it was right.
It's so good talking to you. I adore you. Goodbye.